Hello, it's Jane speaking here from Diamond Light Teachings. I hope you're well today. So today we are journeying with the facet of being. The facet of being sits within the pillar of gratitude, and it's all about balancing our being and our doing. And much of humanity has been in a state of doing for far too long, and many of us have been learning these last few years or perhaps longer to live more from our being state, and it takes time and it takes practice. So this is another video in our 21-day journey with to become the alchemist that you are, or remembering the alchemist that you are. So the facet of being. Now, the wound that sits within is the wound, I feel overwhelmed. So most can relate to that at some point or another. The perception that we feel overwhelmed. Now, the wound's shadow is, we might say to ourselves, life feels too much. I don't see a resolution, and I cannot see a way out. Okay. And the light of the moon, that's interesting. The light of the wound is, I return to the peacefulness of the heart, the fulcrum of my being, that which seeks to be called into balance. So when we return to the heart, if you think about it, as above, so below, we come back into the fulcrum, and that place within us that intrinsically knows balance. Now, the gift of awareness is any feelings of overwhelm are a reminder to go within. So if we feel overwhelmed on the outer, we've become too identified with the outer, and it's always a reminder to go within through one of our tools of light, like the breath, bring the awareness into the heart. And it's life is basically those feelings of overwhelm is when life is feeding back the false beliefs of your outer world. So you're identifying with erroneous beliefs, basically. Yes, an expired world. Now, as I've mentioned in the other facets, there are three aspects of consciousness within each facet. And the first aspect is, I notice when I identify with a lesser version of self, a dying self that has served its purpose. So when we keep identifying with this smaller version of who we are, that's when we basically go out of balance, because it's not who we truly are. Our beingness is connected to the all that is, which is a magnificent aspect of who you are. So that's why you feel overwhelmed, because you're identifying with this smaller version of who you are. And so the heart response would be, I feel into the expansiveness of my being. Yeah, so yeah, and as I say, this just takes time and practice, because we might have been behaving in a certain way for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And so it takes time and practice. Likewise, we can have quantum shifts and sudden shifts. So hang on in there. And the affirmation is, my beingness as part of the oneness of all things takes me beyond what I perceive to be true. So I'll say that again. My beingness as part of the oneness of all things takes me beyond what I perceive to be true. So looping it back into when we feel overwhelmed, we've got a perception that is overwhelmed. But actually, if we come back into our beingness, it's exponentially expansive. And so there is, there is no reason other than our limit, other than the false belief of our limited self. So as I say, the way to come back into that is through the breath, bring the awareness into the heart. So that is the facet of beingness, and I think I would say that's one of my, dare I say, favorite. I mean, it's when we go into that place of beingness, it's such a beautiful place to live from. And I'll be sharing more about it, but we're really living from that alpha state, so we're alert, but we're relaxed and calm at the same time. There's no bypassing going on. It's really full presence. Yeah. So lovely to see you again today, and I'll see you again for the next one. Namaste.